Okay. Yogi, 14 lessons in Yogi philosophy and Oriental occultism. The first lesson, the first three principles. It is with no ordinary feelings that we address ourselves to our students as the Yogi class of 1904. We see, as they perhaps do not, that to many of them, this series of lessons will be as seed planted in fertile soil, which will in due time put forth sprouts, which will force their way gradually into sunlight of consciousness, where they will put forth leaves, blossom, and fruit. Many of the fragments of truth which will be presented to you will not be recognized by you at this time, but in years to come, you will recognize the verity of the impressions which will be conveyed to you in these lessons, and then only will you make these truths your own. We intend to speak to you as if you were gathered before us in person, as if we were standing before you in the flesh. We feel sure that the bond of sympathy between us will soon grow so strong and real that as you read our words, you will feel our presence almost as strongly as if you were with us, as if we were with you in person. We will be with you in spirit, and according to our philosophy, the student who is in harmonious sympathy with his teachers really establishes a psychic connection with them, and is in consequence enabled to grasp the spirit of the teaching and to receive the benefit of the teacher's thought in a degree impossible to one who merely reads the words in cold print. We are sure that the members of the class of 1904 will get into harmony with each other and from us from the very start, and that we will obtain results that will surprise even ourselves, and that the term of the class will mark a wonderful spiritual growth and unfoldment for many in the class. This result would be impossible were the class composed of the general public, in which the adverse thought vibrations of many would counteract or at least retard the impelling force generated in the minds of those who are in sympathy with the work. But we will not have this obstacle to overcome, as the class has been recruited only from that class of students who are interested in the occult. The announcements sent out by us have been worded in such a way as to attract the attention only of those whom they were intended. The mere sensation hunters and the faddists have not been attracted by our call, while those whom the call was intended have heard and have hastened to communicate with us. As the poet has sung, "Where I pass, all my children know me." The members of the class, having been attracted to us, and we to them, will form a harmonious body working with us to the common end of self-improvement, growth, development, and unfoldment. The spirit of harmony and unity of purpose will do much for us, and the united thought of the class, coupled with our own, will be a tower of strength, and each student will receive the benefit of it and will be strengthened and sustained thereby. We will follow the system of instruction of the East rather than that of the Western world. In the East, the teacher does not stop to prove each statement or theory as he makes or advances it, nor does he make a blackboard demonstration of spiritual truths, nor does he argue with his class or invite discussion. On the contrary, his teaching is authoritative, and he proceeds to deliver his message to his students as if it was delivered to him, without stopping to see whether they all agree with him. He does not care whether his statements are accepted as truth by all, for he feels sure that those who are ready for the truth which he teaches will intuitively recognize it. And as for others, if they are not prepared to receive the truth, no amount of argument will help matters. I feel like that right there. And if not prepared to receive the truth, no amount of argument will help matters. So important. When a soul is ready for a spiritual truth, and that truth, or a part of it, it is uttered in its presence or presented to its attention by means of writings, it will intuitively recognize and appropriate it. The Eastern teacher knows that much of his teaching is but the planting of a seed, and that for every idea which the student grasps at first, there will be 100 which will come into the field of conscious recognition only after the lapse of time. We do not mean that the Eastern teachers insist upon the student blindly accepting every truth that is presented to him. On the contrary, they instruct the pupil to accept as truth only that which he can prove for himself, as no truth is truth to one until he can prove it by his own experiments. But the student is taught that before many truths may be so proven, he must develop and unfold. The teacher asks only that the student have confidence in him as a pointer out of the way. And he says, in effect, to the student, "This is the way, enter upon it, and on the path you will find the things of which I have taught you. Handle them, weigh them, measure them, taste them, and know for yourself. When you reach any point of the path, you will know as much as I did or as any other soul at that particular stage of the journey. But until you reach a particular point, you must either accept the statements of those who have gone before or reject the whole subject of that particular point. Accept nothing as final until you have proven it. But if you are wise, you will profit by the advice and experience of those who have gone before. Every man must learn by experience, but men may serve others as pointers of the way. At each stage of the journey, it will be found that those have progressed a little further on the way have left signs and marks and guideposts for those who follow. The wise man will take advantage of these signs. I do not ask for blind faith, but only for confidence until you are able to demonstrate for yourselves the truths I am passing on to you, as they were passed on to me by those who went before." We ask the students to have patience. Many things will appear dark to him at first, but will be made clear as we progress. The constitution of man. Man is a far more complete being than is generally imagined. He has not only a body and a soul, but he is a spirit possessing a soul, which soul has several vehicles for expression, these several vehicles being of different degrees of density, the body being the lowest form of expression. These different vehicles manifest upon different planes, such as the physical plane, the astral plane, etc., all of which will be explained as we proceed. The real self is pure spirit, a spark of the divine fire. This spirit is encased with numerous sheaths which prevent its full expression. As man advances in development, his consciousness passes from the lower planes to the higher, and he becomes more and more aware of his higher nature. The spirit contains within it all potentialities, and as man progresses, he unfolds new powers, new qualities into the light. The Yoga philosophy teaches that man is composed of 7 principles, is a sevenfold creature. The best way to think of man is to realize that the spirit is the real self and that the lower principles are but confining sheets. Man may manifest upon 7 planes, that is, the highly developed man, as the majority of men of this age can manifest only upon the lower planes, the higher planes not having yet been reached by them. Although every man, no matter how undeveloped, possesses the 7 principles potentially. The first 5 planes have been attained by many, the 6th by a few, the 7th by practically none of this race at this time. The 7 principles of man. The 7 principles of man, as known to the Yoga philosophy, are herewith stated, English terms being substituted for Sanskrit words so far as may be. 7, spirit. 6, spiritual mind. 5, intellect. 4, instinctive mind. 3, prana or vital force. 2, astral body. 1, physical body. We will briefly run over the general nature of each of these 7 principles that the student may understand future references to them, but we will defer our detailed treatment of the subject until later on the lessons. The physical body. Of all the 7 principles of man, the physical body is, of course, the most apparent. It is the lowest in the scale and is the crudest manifestation of the man. But this does not mean that the physical should be despised or neglected. On the contrary, it is the most necessary principle for the growth of man in his present stage of development, the temple of the living spirit. And it should be carefully tended and cared for in order to render it a more perfect instrument. We have to but look around us and see how the physical bodies of different men show the different degrees of development under mental control. It is a duty of each developed man to train his body to the highest degree of perfection in order that it may be used to advantage. The body should be kept in good health and condition and trained to obey the orders of the mind rather than to rule the mind, as it is so often the case. The care of the body under the intelligent control of the mind is an important branch of the yogi philosophy and is known as hatha yoga. We are preparing a little textbook upon hatha yoga, which will soon be ready for the press, that will give yogi teachings upon this most important branch of self-development. The yogi philosophy teaches that the physical body is built up of cells, each cell containing within it a miniature life, which controls its actions. These lives are really bits of intelligent mind of a certain degree of growth, which enables the cells to perform their work properly. These bits of intelligence are, of course, subordinate to the control of the central mind of the man and will readily obey orders from headquarters, given either subconsciously or consciously. These cell intelligences manifest a perfect adaptation for their particular work. The selective action of the cells, extracting from the blood the nourishment needed and rejecting that which is not required, is an instance of this intelligence. The process of digestion, assimilation, etc., shows the intelligence of the cells, either separately or collectively in groups. The healing of wounds, the rush of the cells to the points where they are most needed, and hundreds of other examples known to the students of physiology, all mean to the yogi student examples of the life within each atom. Each atom is to the yogi a living thing, leading its own independent life. These atoms combine into groups for some end, and the group manifests a group intelligence, as long as it remains a group. These groups again combining in turn and forming bodies of more complex nature, which serve as vehicles for higher forms of consciousness. When death comes to the physical body, the cells separate and scatter, and that which we call decay sets in. The force which has held the cells together is withdrawn, and it becomes free to go its own way and form new combinations. Some go into the body of the plants in the vicinity and eventually find themselves again the body of an animal. Others remain in the organism of the plants. Others remain in the ground for a time. But the life of an atom means incessant and constant change. I'm going to stop here. So we'll start on page 9.
Pam, does it say what year that book is written? I'm just curious.
I don't know when exactly the book was written, but it's coming from that 1904 class. It's like meant to, so from what I understand, and maybe Amanda, when she joins, can elaborate more, but from what I understand when I read this, is these books were given as like these lessons were given as class lectures, and then they writ them down in book form. So I think it's so crazy like that it's like coming from 1904.
Yeah.
I like the way the material was presented. I remember first trying to read the second book first, and they kept referencing the first book, so I couldn't really get past that because I can't like read one thing without the other. I'm not my OC, my like type A would be like, nope. So I started to read that book, and I read one lesson. They're meant to be taught in months, I think. So I read one lesson each month. I think I did that in 2019 before COVID. I originally was going to do 2 lessons each month and then also do the advanced book so I can get the whole thing done in 1 year. But I was like, I'm cramming too much in. So I think you're supposed to study each one in a month. But when I eventually found my way to the 14 lessons book, I really started to connect with it. I really liked it. I liked the way the material was presented. I like that, especially compared to the last book we read. It's like, look, I'm going to present the material to you and you do what you want from here with it. You can either study it more, you can believe it, you don't have to believe it. It's not like the other book where it's like, if you don't believe it, then you're not a good person. I'm exaggerating. But yeah, some of this book, it's like really way out there. Like, you know how sometimes Amanda will talk about like the magic tricks that yoga can present, like when you're meditating for a long time and all of a sudden you get these like psychic abilities that you start seeing clearly, and like you start like feeling like you're seeing things. That's what this book will talk about.
I think that I gave up on it. I think I got about halfway through the last time because that's I have a hard time. I have a hard time with that. So I don't, I'm like, yeah.
I know. The reason why I think I liked it was that like I still like, it's not that I don't believe in stuff or I do believe in stuff. It's just like, for me, it was more just like learning about it, because like then I can start to be compassionate toward people that do feel like they are experiencing that, because who am I to judge if people are experiencing that or not?
Absolutely. That, which is why I'm, willing to give it another go. But I'm a very practical person. So when it gets to those kind of magical things, not that I love to read about magic. I love reading fictional magical stories. All of that stuff, but I'm not sure about superpowers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like I'll never forget this. My freshman year of college, they did like freshman week of orientation, and like they had all these like on campus activities, and one of them was to go see a hypnotist in the auditorium, and so I went, and I always thought that stuff was like fluff, like not like show, and he just like randomly picked like 20 students out of the auditorium and he really hypnotized them. Now, who's to say, like they swear, these people are not pre-picked. Now, whether or not they're lying to me or not, that's a whole nother story. But like if he really did pick these people, and I mean, now we're talking like this was like over 20 years ago now. So I don't remember the specifics, but I feel like there might have been a few who couldn't get hypnotized and he would send them off stage, and then some people would wake up faster out of it than other people. But the fact that he could just hypnotize these people just by like snapping his finger or whatever, I mean, that was like great. So until I could like really witness it, it's hard. And that's why I love this book. He's like, don't believe me until you prove the truth for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that part too.
And he's like, and I just love the part where it's like, just don't argue with people that don't, like, there would be no point in me arguing with you, Jackie, and being like, it's all true. Because like, you're not going to change your mind until you experience it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's an important part, because we get so stuck. Like, we think it's our job to make sure everyone believes what we believe instead of just letting people.
Yeah, no, I stopped that a long time ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago. Whatever floats your boat, it's good for me.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, it's just like that the whole yeah. And I don't know if I've experienced like a psychic ability, but I guess the idea behind The Secret, like The Secret, where like if you put if you think the thought, is this Amanda now, or is it Micheline rejoining?
Oh, it's me. It's Amanda.
I thought so, because Micheline's taking Megan's spot.
Good morning.
Good morning. We just read the first few parts of lesson 1. They started talking about the 7 planes of the body. Oh, not the body, the 7 planes of the human. But I was just telling them I like how he presents this. Oh, maybe Domenica, maybe Amanda knows the answer to your question. You said you wanted to know. So when
it was written.
This material was from a class in 1904, but Domenica wanted to know if we knew when the book was written. I don't have the book with me. I just know the materials from 1904.
Oh, yeah. I think it says in the front of the book when it was written.
I'll check tomorrow. Sometimes it's hard to tell because there's been so many editions of it. So sometimes it's hard to tell exactly.
I mean, all it says in my book is the copyright's 2019, so it wasn't written then.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to tell. I just go by 1904.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. If that's when the class was.
1862 to 1932.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, maybe that's when he was teaching this material. Because he talks at the beginning of this book that it's from the class of 1904.
Oh, so that's probably.
So it was probably shortly after that.
In the 1900s, yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah, he was an English guy, and I think he was using like is it a pseudonym?
But yeah,
he traveled in India and got obsessed with the occult, and then maybe he initiated it, and that's why his name changed.
I mean, I have to be honest, when you in this book for yoga teacher training, that word occult scares the crap out of me. I don't know why. It's because I don't know what it is or what it means. It's just like,
well, that's what they just called all this stuff back then. It was like it became sort of the new interest of people. Like people would have psychics come to their house and do seances, and they became very fascinated in sort of what was not material, and anything that was not material they called the occult. So they kind of like grouped it all in.
Yeah.
I think it was just like what was popular to call it at the time.
Yeah. But the idea we were talking about like psychic ability, like capabilities. I like the way he presents this material because he told us like he's teaching from a Western point of view, where it's like he's just going to lecture. He's not gonna make sure our students understand. He's not gonna try to prove his point. He's just going to lecture and leave it to the student to prove the truth to themselves versus argue with people about it.
Right. It's very Gyani.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that he's like, look, it's don't just take my word for it. Go out in the world and prove this truth to yourself. Like do your work for it.
That's how most things should be taught, in my opinion.
Well,
otherwise we're just creating like followers and not thinkers.
Yeah. So I like that part of it. And I was explaining an example of like the hypnotist they saw in college. Like I would never believe in that stuff until I saw it really happening in front of my eyes. And like, who am I to judge who has these capabilities or not? I don't know if I have them. I wouldn't like say I do, but maybe there are moments where like that's what I was going into with The Secret, like that idea of like going after things you want. Like it's that, I think we talked about this in other lessons, like there was an example you gave, Amanda. It was like, was it a lion or a shark or something? And it's like, oh God, I can't remember. It'll come back to me. Yeah, my brain is getting real old real fast. My goodness, I like I'm having those like grandma moments, and I'm like, I really my body is getting older. Like I don't think I'm as old as I am, but it's like I'm gonna be 40 in like a year and a half. So it's crazy. My mind is failing me. I feel like I'm gonna have to start doing like crossword puzzles or something. Like
Was it about like the lion in the cage? You don't just jump in the lion's cage or something?
no, it was more about like what comes first. Like if I want something, like with The Secret, like I wanted to go to my college. That's the only college I wanted to go to. And I saw that in my future and I made it happen. But did I make it happen because I wanted it so badly? Or was that something I was seeing in my future, like a psychic capability where it's like, that's where I need to go? And that's what I see with The Secret, like when that stuff happens, when people see that stuff, like they see what they want and they make it happen. But are they just like seeing the future and it's just a glimpse into the future and it just helps them get back on their path? I don't know.
Well, our desire generally helps manifest our reality, but is our desire based in what already is? Yeah, I hear you. It's kind of dualistic. That's the world we've chosen to live in. It's a dualistic place. We have these spiritual influences, which you could call a cult, and then you have these material influences that sort of lace themselves between the spiritual. And if time isn't real, then it's probably both things.
Or the people that are always like, I knew this was going to happen. Like, you just know something's going to happen and then it happens. It's like, did you really know it was going to happen, or did you like manifest it yourself?
Well, yeah, it speaks to like, are we the ones in control, or is there a larger thing in control?
Yeah. And that's like, I don't know the answer to that, but that's where I can find these glimpses of psychic in, because I don't know if we're controlling it or if someone else is controlling it for us.
But if we're a drop of the controller, you know what I mean? We are, but we aren't.
I was watching Avengers last night. We're still going through all the movies in order. And there was one part where the villain was like, or they were talking about the villain, and one of the characters said, he doesn't know the difference between saving the world and destroying the world. And I'm like, oh, it's that same idea of like the same side of the
The Avengers is so Vedic.
Oh my God. I was watching it while I was texting you last night, and the movies are just so long. If anything over like an hour, my attention's like out, done.
I just started Loki.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched that one yet.
But that's all about time. It was very interesting. It was what we were talking about, the different like timelines that you can jump into, like an alternate timeline. Remember we had that whole conversation? Like the whole thing is about that.
Yeah,
it's very good. It's very interesting.
I've been watching these movies like since the last, I don't know, 2 months we've been watching. We're like halfway through, and every time I'm watching them now with like I've probably seen them all once or twice. So like this might be my third time watching some of them. And it's just like, oh my God, these movies it's so based on that stuff. If you've watched them. Yeah. I'm like, and I had other, like, there were other parts of movies, and I've said this before, but I'm like, I am not taking notes during an Avengers movie and tying it to yoga. All right, so it's 8:10. Does anyone else have anything to share or ask before we move into our breath work and meditation? I feel like this morning went so fast. All right. So we will sit up nice and tall. Find that straight, strong spine. Creating our long breath in and out through our nose, if that feels okay this morning. And then you'll take your right hand to the nose, creating alternate nostril breaths, and put the peace fingers into the palm or on the third eye, space between the eyebrows. Close the right nostril with the thumb. Inhale through the left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale left. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. You can release your palm. If you need a few more rounds, you'll take it. I'm going to set the timer and you'll join us when you're ready. Enhance the Heart Center. Namaste. Have a beautiful day, everybody.